Downs and the M2 Network. It is 26 after the hour, and telephone lines open if you want to talk Debbie. 888-484-3622, 888 for the Mac. We have a long way to go and a lot of ground to cover here. 736 wins, 34 years, just a wonderful career, and we were getting you caught up kind of like through the 80s, and as things started to, as the AIAW then changed, the NCAA took over. So, so that was what year? So 84, 85, you think
it might have been 82
here?
or 83, but there were two champions that year. There was the AIAW champion, and then there was the...
That's right.
Yeah, then there was the NCAA champion, and I think the AIAW champion might have been Rutgers, and the Rutgers was AIAW, and the NCAA, I think, was Texas.
How about that? But then the landscape started to change when the NCAA stepped in, right? Oh,
yeah, everything got bumped up quite a bit, and everybody started to get scholarships, and, you know, there were some schools that lagged behind, but if you really wanted to win, you had to put some money into the women's program.
Title IX was signed in, what, 74?
1972.
Or 72.
1972.
And so now it's 13 years later, 12 years later.
12 to 15 years later. And even to the early 90s, people weren't really paying attention to it at all. And then you started to have a few lawsuits. And once that happened, once the lawsuits happened, it was really, really tough. Because then a lot of people started to really open their eyes, like ADs had to really pay attention and say, well, can't do this anymore. And that's when it really started to pick up in all sports for women.
Yeah. Because, let alone the other sports weren't being, they had no money or no scholarship money or recruiting money or anything.
No.
So were you handed then finally a recruiting budget in the mid-'80s? I mean, when you finally said,
when we went into the NCAA, they didn't really hand me a recruiting budget. I mean, you got to remember, there were a lot of sports at Virginia every year, and so we tried to get a scholarship or two every year, one more. And it really wasn't until Dick Schultz got there that I saw any real change. Of course, my uncle thought I could do it with nothing, so that's what I had.
Just go win.
Yeah, you should be. He used to tell me, you should be doing this for nothing. And I said, okay, I can do that. He did. He said, you should be doing this for nothing. And I really would do it for nothing. I really would.
That's funny.
But then it got a whole lot better as Dick Schultz and Jim Copeland came in and really took over in terms of providing more budgetary dollars.
And it didn't take you long, which we'll get into in a minute, because then those 89, the glory years started in 89, and it didn't take long. Once you got a little budget and could recruit. Let's go to Charlottesville. We'll talk with Mike. He's got a question about the ACC and some arenas. Mike, go ahead. You're on the air with Debbie Ryan.
Debbie, lots of respect to you.
Hi, Mike.
So you've been doing it you did it for 34 years. So, I know you had a good time in Charlottesville and love being in the area, but if you had to pick one ACC arena to go to, if you had to pick just one to go play at one more time, what would it be? And how often do you stay in touch with the Burgess twins, and where the heck are they?
Okay.
Yeah, where are they? Where's Heidi and Heather?
Let me tell you about the Burgess twins first. Heather lives in California. And they have started. She's married, and she's started a family.
Oh, great.
And Heidi lives in Texas, Houston, Texas, and she works. I forget what she works in, but she has kids too. So, and I actually offered all of their kids scholarships. So, hopefully Joanne or whoever's here when they get old enough can carry on that tradition of, because those kids are going to be huge because both of them married very tall men.
Oh, how about that?
Yeah.
So you just offered right out of the crib.
Right out of the crib. That's right.
It's done.
They weren't even born yet, and I had sent them
letters.
Yeah, I had sent them offers. Yep, that's right. I did.
You got to start recruiting early, so that makes sense.
So I offered the boys too, because I figured, we'd want them. We'd want them when time
Tony
came.
will take a look at them too.
He'll figure it out.
That's funny.
But
if you had one place to play.
Now, my only question about that is it like my favorite arena, or where it would be where I've won the most games, or
if you could play one more game to go back, where would you want to go back? Where would you want to travel to?
I'd want to play at Cameron Indoor Stadium.
I had a feeling you were going to say that.
Yeah.
So
always great to win at Cameron Indoor
Stadium. Yeah, anytime to go down there.
Yeah.
And I know speaking of which, and I'm kind of off the mark here, Bill Brill, who had a lot of respect for you, passed away
Bill Brill.
Passed away on Sunday. I know you know that.
So sorry about that.
But he had a lot of respect for you, always did, and what you did, and always supported what you did.
Yeah. He was a tremendous guy. He was one of the few people that really wrote, because he wrote a column, and not many sports writers would really want to write about women's sports.
Right.
But he took an early interest in us and wrote a column them, and you don't really get that kind of attention.
Correct.
And you would not see many men really want to get involved in the women's movement, because it was sometimes, I think they felt like we were taking opportunities away from men, and so it was always a fight about that. But Bill Brill was always someone who really, really respected the women and their games.
Yeah, absolutely. Debbie Ryan is here. 888-484-3622. 888-4. The Mac is the number. 888-484-3622. If you want to ask her a question, get in. As you said, you started to recruit. You start to compete against the Old Dominions of the world that had been launched in NC State and Tennessee and some of those programs.
Yeah, they were
Maryland.
way ahead of us.
They were. But
people don't even know that. They think that I was ahead of them. I'm like, I was never ahead of them. Never, ever ahead of them.
Did your schedule reflect that? Did you start to play them in the mid-'80s because you wanted to kind of show, hey, this is who we need to play?
Yep. We played pretty difficult schedules, and we still do today. We played tough schedules. Our RPI this year was 15. Our strength of schedule was 15. So it really helps your RPI, win or lose. But we did play a tough schedule. Like, we would play Tennessee, and we would play NC State. And even though the league was formed a little bit later than when I started, where you played all the league games.
Right.
But there were definitely, like, Old Dominion was to our east, Tennessee was to the west, Maryland was on top, and NC State was down below. So you had really good teams with lots of resources.
Where were you trying to find players in? Where were you trying to recruit?
Basically in this general area, because I only had a little car and I had to drive it everywhere.
Even mid-'80s now, late 80s? I mean, you're still
got a little bit better then, but I didn't really start recruiting nationally until a little bit later when we had more money in the budget. But we found.
So in other words, you didn't fly much to recruit. In other words, you didn't buzz up to New York, fly up to New York, and come back.
If you did go, you went for like a week because you had to see everybody up there and find a way. But we didn't venture too far. We would go, just probably these mid-Atlantic states, and sometimes if there was somebody really good, like, remember Donna Holt?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, when I got out to Chicago, I kind of hit the jackpot out there with her. And then her sidekick, Daphne Hawkins, came with her. And so that was a great little duo for 4 years, and just very quick kids and just really, really great players.
Yeah, well, you started, so the 89-93 years, of course, the 3 consecutive championships in the ACC, the 3 trips to the Final Four. Now you've really put Virginia women's basketball. And when you look at it, Debbie, it didn't take that. To you, it probably it took forever.
It did take forever. Lord,
but but now you're turning the 90. Really, and people are looking at you as really one of the. I don't want to say pioneer, it makes you sound old, but really you were one of the pioneers of women's basketball at that point now, because you had really, it really, when you look at it, it didn't take that long to get to be a nationally acclaimed program.
Yeah, when you look at it now, but when you were going through it.
Yeah, it would have taken forever.
And you would lose to
NC
NC State by like 2 points, and you would be right there, and you just couldn't win that game. Or when you would drive a bus down to Old Dominion and sit on that bus on the way home, having gotten beaten by 30, thinking, are we ever going to get there? And they were just so far ahead of us. They had international players coming in, and Nancy Lieberman was on their team. Be serious. It was crazy. And you're just trying to in this little niche, try to get kids from Philadelphia and New York, and it was hard. It was really, really
during
hard.
Those times now, but you're in a comfort zone, you're winning games, the program, respect, the whole 9 yards. Did you get offers, and did you think maybe there was another job out there that you were going to go for? And I'm sure you did. Your phone probably rang every summer.
Yeah.
Did you consider other places?
There were definitely considerations of other places. But
Yeah.
But I would go and visit. And then, you'd come back and you'd think, well, if I just had, just a little bit more here, or maybe I'd come back and say, you know what, I got enough here. I can do this. And there were definitely offers and definitely other things that came up during that period of time. But nothing that was what I really wanted to do, because I really knew we could do it here. I knew that.
What was the closest job you almost took?
Probably Ohio State.
Really?
Yeah. At one time.
Yeah, they were chasing you. How about that? Well, you knew, I mean, because you had to get offers. I mean, people had to be looking, at here what you were doing and what you had accomplished, especially after the early 90s.
Yeah, and I didn't get in. I know sometimes I'd go and do the interview and stuff, but then I would realize on the way home that that's not what I wanted, and I would call them.
Before we go to break, when did it all of a sudden then change? And do you remember, I mean, like Ralph had the rhetoric communications degree. Was there an academic change that made things hard to recruit and to get kids in school? And did you go through a major frustration of getting kids in? That other schools, in other words, were there kids you just knew you couldn't touch at UVA? You couldn't get in here?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's definitely, you really understand the landscape. And you just, so every once in a while you take a chance and you can get at-risk kids in. But your biggest concern is maybe not getting in, but staying in. So you have to be sure that you're choosing kids of great character who really work their tails off and really want to do this academically. Because there's some kids that show you right from jump that, I may be on the borderline, but I ain't going to go to class. You can see that. And so you have to be real careful about that part, because if you can get in here and really do your job and go to class and do the work and stay real diligent during the semester, you can do it here. You can definitely do it here. But it's not, it's a good school. It's a really good school. And there's going to be kids that are better students than you here at certain times. So, you just have to work hard.
Debbie Reiner's here. We'll go to break. We'll come back. We'll get into her battle with cancer and how tough it was. And did she think about giving up the job at that point? And also, as the years approach now and approaching the resignation, and why the resignation? And will there be another coaching job in the future? All those questions coming up right here. This is Inbounds. We are the M2 Network. We'll be right back.